Here's something that might surprise you. Research shows that the tiniest changes in our daily routines can have up to 10 times more impact on our well-being than major life decisions. But we're constantly waiting for these huge, dramatic moments to transform our lives.
Well, that's fascinating, especially when you consider how our brains are actually wired to overlook these small but powerful adjustments. What makes us dismiss these micro changes so easily?
You know, neuroscience suggests it's because our reward systems are calibrated for immediate, visible results. But here's what's really interesting. A recent study showed that people who focused on tiny, consistent changes were 64% more likely to maintain positive habits long-term compared to those attempting dramatic overhauls.
That reminds me of this incredible case study about someone who transformed their entire living space and their mental health with just 5 minutes of daily effort.
Oh yes, the 5-minute tidy approach. It's fascinating because it taps into what psychologists call temporal discounting, where we tend to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future benefits. But this person found that just 5 minutes of evening cleanup had this massive compound effect on their mental state the next day.
So, what exactly happens in those 5 minutes that makes such a big difference?
Well, it's not about deep cleaning. It's about creating what researchers call environmental cues for success. You're essentially programming your space to reduce what's known as cognitive load. Studies show that people who wake up to organized spaces experience up to 40% less morning stress and make better decisions throughout the day.
That's really interesting how it connects to decision-making, like we're actually preserving our mental energy for more important things.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. I've been experimenting with another micro-change called the digital sunset. At 9 p.m., the phone goes on, do not disturb, and into another room. The research on this is pretty compelling. People who implement digital boundaries experience a 73% improvement in sleep quality.
You know, that reminds me of some recent findings about how blue light exposure affects our circadian rhythms. The data suggests even 30 minutes less screen time before bed can increase REM sleep by up to 25%.
Right. And what's really fascinating is how these small changes create what behavioral scientists call positive cascades. Like, better sleep leads to better decision-making, which leads to better eating habits, which leads to more energy. It's this beautiful domino effect that all starts with one tiny adjustment.
That makes me think about the psychology of habit formation. There must be something specific about these small time frames that makes them particularly effective.
Yes. Research from MIT's behavioral lab shows that 5 minutes hits this sweet spot in our psychology. It's long enough to accomplish something meaningful, but short enough that our brains don't trigger what's called the threat response to change. They found that habits formed in 5-minute increments had an 80% higher success rate than longer commitments.
Well, that certainly challenges our cultural obsession with massive transformations and extreme makeovers.
And here's what I find most compelling. These micro changes often work better than dramatic overhauls because they're sustainable. Studies show that people who make small, consistent changes are 3 times more likely to maintain them after 1 year compared to those who try to change everything at once.
So it's really about finding those small leverage points that can create outsized results in our lives.
Exactly that. You know, there's this fascinating concept in systems theory called the minimum effective dose. It's the smallest input that will produce the desired outcome. When we apply this to personal change, we often find that these tiny adjustments are actually the most powerful tools we have.
That's such a powerful reframe of how we think about personal transformation.
And what's particularly exciting is how accessible this makes meaningful change. You don't need special equipment or expensive programs. You just need to identify one small lever you can consistently move in your daily life. Research shows that people who focus on one micro change at a time are 85% more likely to succeed than those trying to change multiple habits simultaneously.
So the real key is patience and consistency rather than intensity.
Precisely. And looking at the long-term data, these small changes compound dramatically over time. A study tracking people over 5 years found that those who maintained tiny, consistent habits showed significantly more positive life outcomes than those who attempted periodic major changes. It's really about trusting the process and understanding that true transformation happens in these quiet, almost invisible moments of daily choice.